Hi, welcome back. My name is Terry Morgan, and today we are going to talk about the 10 most common transformations that we see here in the Integrate.io ETL platform. I'm going to navigate us to the X console here in the lower left-hand corner of the dashboard. Here in the X console, we can run these transformation functions with literal values. So we are going to start with several different timestamp functions. Anyone who's worked with data knows the pain of dealing with timestamps in a whole myriad of formats. We are going to start with the toDate function. The toDate function can take timestamps that come in different data types. So either custom strings, they could be coming in a numeric data type, and transforms them to a datetime data type. And our example today will bring in a Unix timestamp, which is a numeric data type. And when I click return, it will return a datetime data type for us. Now, the next timestamp function that we see all the time here in the platform is the current time function. Now, this will generate a datetime timestamp for right now, and it will generate it in the UTC time zone. So you can see that right there. My clients will often use this when they need a dynamically generated timestamp for, potentially pulling data from now. Now, another timestamp that we're going to use in conjunction, or another function rather that we're going to use in conjunction with that current time, is we're going to generate a timestamp from a week ago, and we're going to use the subtract duration function combined with that current time. And then we're going to tell the function that we want a timestamp from a week ago. So now minus a week gives us this timestamp right here. So I could pull in data, and when that job runs, it'll generate now and a week ago from now in order to pull that last week of data. Now the last timestamp function that is really most commonly used here is the toString function. And the toString really, essentially, it does kind of the opposite job, if you think about it, from the toDate function. toDate takes a custom string and turns it into a datetime. The toString function will take the datetime timestamp and turn it into a custom string of really any type that you need. So we're going to generate a current time, datetime, and then we're going to customize it into this string. And you can see here that now it's Thursday, 26 September 2024, and then the timestamp information. And you'll see here, as I mentioned, that current time generates a timestamp in UTC time. Now, that very particular timestamp was actually used by a client of mine who needed to pass a timestamp in that format to an API he was calling to retrieve data from. However, his API specified that it be in GMT, the GMT time zone instead of UTC, even though they're really the same time zone. So we utilized the replace string function combined with that toString function in order to generate the timestamp he needed to pass to that API. So you can see here that we've got that same custom format, but now it's GMT instead of UTC. So certainly this replace function amongst, several different string functions, it's a very common one. So the next string function that I see all the time is the concatenate function, the concat. Now, in our example here, we might have data coming in. Maybe there's a first name field, maybe there's a last name field in your data set, and we need a full name field. So we might concatenate the first name field with a space and then the last name field, and generate a full name field like that. Okay. Now, so sometimes we're going that direction where we're taking a first name and a last name and concatenating it with a space. Sometimes what we have in our data set is actually a full name field, and maybe we need a first name and a last name field. So to go in that opposite direction, we would use a string split function and split it around the space. So when I execute that, the string split function is going to return to me a tuple with two values in it, Mary and Jones. Now, if I want I want to split those up now, maybe I want just the Mary part, then I can use this syntax right here, period, $0, pulls out the first part of that tuple, Mary, or to get the second part, $and 1, and now I can retrieve hiding behind my picture is Jones. In order to be able to see parsing that second part of the Mary Jones tuple, we'll go ahead and clear our X console and parse that second piece. And you can see that Jones is returned. Now, the next string function that we see all the time used here is the substring function. And you may see, sometimes I've seen data coming in and it's a full name for a given day of the week, for instance. And maybe what we're looking for in our transformed data is really just the abbreviation for the first 3 letters of that day of the week. So we could use the substring function to just standardize that and return just the first 3 days of the week. Now, there's one more string function that I think that we see often, and that's the sprintf function. Now, oftentimes I see this function used when we're dealing with numeric data types. It can be used with strings, it can be used with numeric data types, but I probably see it most often when we're dealing with currency, or really when we're dealing with a required number of digits past a decimal point. So for instance, if I wanted to even create a double value here in the platform, and maybe I want it to be 10.00. And so I create this to utilize it, but you'll see that it's going to drop one of those zeros. But maybe this is in a numeric field and I really want both of the zeros after my decimal point, or really just both of the numbers of whatever part they are. I can use this sprintf function along with this format string here. This tells me that this tells the function that I want to keep those two different positions past the decimal. So when I execute it, now you can see that I keep those 2 zeros after. So those are the most common string functions that we see here. The last function that I see used really all the time in our platform, the one we're going to end this video with, is the curl function. That in our platform, you can call an API, retrieve data, enrich your data set with that data that might be coming in. And you can even run those curl functions right here in the X console. So you can see right here that I'm going to call this API endpoint and pass the method of get. When it returns, you can see that the return from a curl function is a map data type. And there are 3 keys in that map. So headers, that comes first. Then you can see down here, the body is returned next. And the final header is status. So that's the status of this call. Now, if I wanted to just get the body, which is where that data would be, I can add this syntax right here, parses a specific key within a map. So it's a number sign, single quotes, and the name of the key, which in this case is body. And if I run that now, you can see that I just get the body itself, the data that's returned. Okay, so these are the 10 most common transformations that I see run in our platform all the time. And thank you for joining us, and hope to see you again later.